Thank you. A lot of good points there. Obviously, we all know the Vatican has quite a bit of substantial wealth that they hoard. I guess the current Pope has gotten a lot better, at least. He doesn't sit on the golden throne and wear all the jewelry, the rings, and all that and everything. But that's kind of superficial because it's not like the church doesn't still own all those things. I don't know what the number is that, somebody has placed, a number on the amount of wealth that the Catholic Church owns and that what the Vatican owns. And it's pretty substantial and it could go a long way towards helping people. But, setting that aside, I wanted to focus more on humanism and specifically secular humanism to differentiate it, since humanism is a term that could be kind of applied broadly, could even be applied, towards spiritual or religious things. So I think it's important that we make sure that we recognize that we're talking about secular humanism, and basically a pretty simple definition for secular humanism is that it embraces human reason, ethics, and philosophical naturalism, which is basically science for natural explanations for existence and things like that, and how life came to be. It's kind of a unified way of looking at the Big Bang through evolution, abiogenesis, all that. And specifically, it also rejects religious dogma and supernaturalism and pseudoscience, superstition, and all that, as it relates to morality. So I think that's important to note. There's no dogma in humanism. There's no set of rules that you have to follow. It really allows a lot of freedom and individuality to express yourself and to kind of, maybe have different thoughts or different ideas from others who also identify as humanists. So that's really important because, religion can be really dogmatic and really restrictive as far as what it allows you to believe or the ideas that it allows you to have, especially about things like morality. And as far as morality, I won't touch on that too much because I know that Glenn's gonna mention that later. But basically, humanism allows us as humans to set our own moral standards based upon what we can see as right and good, and what we all can almost universally agree upon, as opposed to what some God allegedly says or what somebody wrote down a long time ago. And even if we can clearly see that those things are disagreeable or harmful, there's little room for debate as far as that goes within the scope of religion. So I think one main advantage of humanism is that it allows us to credit people when they do good, when they accomplish things. How many times do we see people? We can remember Matthew McConaughey at the Oscars last year up there going on about thinking how God was responsible for this and that he's just a pawn and all that, but it's like he's completely taking away from his own ability, what he did, that he worked hard and that he was able to put this great performance on film and have it be recognized as such. But instead of taking that and saying like, I worked really hard, I put the effort into this, he kind of like brushed that aside and was like, oh yeah, it's all God, it's all him. I had nothing to do with it. So, and then on the other hand, you also know we see athletes all the time too after games. It's like a cliche. It's like, oh yeah, the first thing, oh, I got to thank God. And it's like, all right, so, what happens if you would have lost? Are you thanking God then? It's because is God only responsible for successes, or is he also still there when you fail? And obviously, people on both teams believe in God. So it's like, what did you do to not earn God's favor this week if you didn't win? So, it's not to be egotistical, certainly, by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely to at least take, credit for when you work hard and you accomplish something. Another example is like, when somebody has some disease cured or goes through some difficult surgery and they come out and everything's okay and they're going to recover. It's like, don't thank God, thank the doctor, because they're the ones that did the work. Thank the science that allowed you to come out of that and be able to live. So give credit where credit's due, basically. And also another aspect of that is, we can also recognize human foibles and failings and things, but without the guilt that's associated with religion. We don't have to say like, oh, we're guilty of humans being sinners and all that. we can kind of just make sure that we know that people aren't perfect and recognize that, but we don't have to make people feel bad about it. We can accept that and deal with that as human beings. And I think one last point that I want to make is, before I pass it on over to Tyler, is that, with religion, it's like anytime something tragic happens or whatever, it's like people always say, I'll pray for you, or I'm praying for you. And it's a nice sentiment in that, they're thinking about you, certainly, because there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, we all want people thinking about us, especially in difficult times, and giving us support and things like that. But a lot of the times when people say that, that's really the end of it. They're like, oh, I'm praying for you, and I can't really do anything else to help, so that's my offering to you. So with humanism, it's like, oh, can I do anything to help, even if it is like being, somebody to lean on, be there for just emotional support, even if you can't be there in person, or financially supporting someone or anything like that. Because when you say, like, I'm praying for you, you're like assuming that there's a God up there that's going to say, oh, well, I hear your prayers, and I'm going to, decide if I want to take action or not. And then you're kind of assuming that things are going to get better just because of that. And then if they don't, well, maybe God had a different plan and all that. And so with humanism, it's more involved. You can actually try to reach out to people and help them instead of relying upon some God up there.